AI, a challenge to humanity. So this is going to be a series of talks on the topic of AI. It can be an uncomfortable topic, but it's a topic I think on everyone's mind, so I don't think that I'm bringing up anything that we aren't already thinking about. So with this massive increase in AI in just a short amount of time, I don't think there's anyone around that hasn't had some challenging feelings about AI, including myself. I mean, I think I've ranged from, horror to excitement to even humor. Early on, I had ChatGPT write some pretty funny raps and country music songs about science concepts. Anyway, so in this session, we're not really going to dive into the ethical implications in that sense. We're going to acknowledge it. Acknowledge that we have, some really complicated feelings right now as a collective species right now, I think, kind of, and accommodate those emotions. But really, I think that there's a kind of an opportunity to use AI to think about what makes us human. What is the same in the sense of like the AI is trained on all this extensive amount of our amazing human knowledge and arts and sciences, etc. But more so, I think these talks will focus on what is kind of different about us, what is meaningful in a human interaction. So this first session. Oh, and we'll also do some contemplations at the end. So, we'll talk a little bit about some science, and then we'll do a contemplation at the end. So, the first session is, what do we want from our fellow humans, and what does that mean about who we are, and what makes human connection meaningful? And there was a recent study that looked at an AI chat box in people who were on a particular website, and they were there. They can have peer-to-peer social support, and you can ask for help. And so there, people who were asking, if someone could help. Peer, mostly younger people use this particular app, and there was actually a 2018 study which shows you that these, here most AI would be called machine learning back then, and in fact it's kind of machine learning as a form of AI has been talked about for many years, but I guess it's kind of now with the chat box and the language learning models a little bit more weighty. But anyway, they had what was called an AI-assisted interaction that could occur. So someone who, one of the peers that, decides to respond could, select AI assist, and that, there would be one of those super quick responses written in, response to, hey, I'm feeling kind of down today. Oh yeah, I understand, blah, blah, blah. And then the person would have to send it along, or they could edit it and then send it along. And what they found in research is people really liked the AI responses. But once they found out that it was AI, they generally didn't like that. They didn't want to continue with the AI, because they would say things like, oh, I know how you feel. Like, no, you don't. You don't know how I feel. There's a certain genuineness that would be missing. But also, I think there was a sense of the person who's helping you is in some ways putting themselves out a bit. They're taking time, for one thing, which says right there that one is worthy, right? There's a worth that's conveyed to a person with that. But then there would also be, a sense of, hey, if you're talking about difficult topics, it might bring up something for the other person too. You're making yourself a little bit vulnerable, exposing yourself to the potential of suffering a bit. In fact, compassion, the word means suffering with. So the fact that people do this does restore my faith in humanity. People are doing this because it feels good. It feels good to help someone else, and that reward is much greater than the risk that in most cases. But you do have to be a bit careful. So anyway, we can talk about boundaries as well. But the fact that things, I think they rated something like the effort. They were touched with the fact that people put in effort to help, and AI obviously, no effort is extended, and that meant something. So it brought lasting happiness and satisfaction to the other, and you sense that they want to do it because it feels good, and you are part of that experience. There's this kind of moral elevation that happens when you see and experience someone who is doing the right thing, doing something that, this might be a little bit unpleasant for a while, but in the end, I'm going to help someone, and that matters. Like, to be part of that situation, whether you're the helper or the helpee, it is kind of special. And I think that shows where the chat box might have said the right things, and they were highly rated responses, but once they found out, it's a chat box, then the effect isn't the same because it's missing those elements. So the interaction between helper and helped is the unity of sorts. The word literally means, that all involved are a whole, an interaction, a whole interaction. And the helper and the helpee might have different emotions and responses, and they will come away with a different sense of the experience, but they're still linked in a dynamic way, and the responses bounce off of each other. And in fact, in psychology, we call this a dyad, an interaction between two people. But in life, there might be more. So when things go well in a dyad, there is a sense of connection that feels rewarding. It probably is hardwired into our brain to kind of strive for these connections throughout our life. In fact, there was a research study on rats, and there would be a little rat that was trapped in a cage, in the middle of a cage, so trapped in like a tube, and the other rat would forego safety, going out into the middle of a cage, which is quite vulnerable, and exposing themselves to the danger of a trap, trying to get a friendly rat out of this trap, and also there would be a plate of chocolate chip cookies, or no, just chocolate chips, and the rats love chocolate chips, and they would ignore the chocolate chips and really work to help this other rat out. And finally, when the rat was released, they would be quite happy. And then they even did some controls where they knew the rat would be released in a way that they would never get to play with the rat, and so even they're not releasing the rat just so they can play. They tried to cover all the bases. It's just really for the sense of it's the right thing to do. And that's a lot of times what people cite when they're engaged in acts of moral beauty. Well, it's just the right thing to do. And a lot of people witnessing say, hey, that restored my faith in humanity. It feels good to see people doing the right thing. So, there's a little bit of sacrifice involved, in a kind of risk-reward ratio that favors, hey, I could be uncomfortable for a bit and help this person out. I can do it. I've got the skill set. I'm in a place that I can do it emotionally and mentally. It has to be done in a smart way. So I am giving that caveat that, becoming where you pour yourself out to help every cause is probably going to cause some unbalance, and we'll talk about that in some of the subsequent meditations and practices. So you definitely get multiple benefits from being in an interaction of helping. Most likely belongingness is a critical need for mammals in general. Even some other animals show that there has to be a connection with others. Unfortunately, that can sometimes be exploited by things like, gangs or hate groups or such, where they can cater to that sense of belongingness, and that's a well-known psychological thing, but it generally has an icky feel. You're harming others, exploiting others with those types of groups. So here we're talking about things where you do get a warm feeling in your heart. It feels right. And William James called these saintly qualities. They're the kind of, he's an American psychologist, but you can find this in thousands of years of religious literature as well, in describing, these types of qualities, these self-transcendent qualities. So now we're going to do a meditation.